Yeah.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Good. It's hard to believe that in 2 weeks, teachers will be back. 4 weeks, the students will be back.
Oh, thank you.
Have you been able to continue the other information? Have you?
First day off, so I gotta come to this one. This is the last one, right?
No, we have one next Friday. Just getting ready for back to school.
Now you have to see the ones we call on. Because we've been videoing them, just in case
Okay.
people can't make it.
I'm on the Facebook page.
So it's in the YouTube or?
They haven't been, they take days to
To
upload.
upload, okay.
So,
We'll let you
but
know.
the presentations are there.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it just a couple more minutes, guys, before I start. Did you see the tiger banners?
Yes, I did.
Do you like them?
I had a girl tell me on Monday, and I was going, oh, what is that? I've never seen that before.
Yeah, we're excited to roll that out. You have your daughter's coming new to the school.
My niece.
Yeah, my-
Yes.
Yeah.
What grade?
My baby in
Second.
June.
Second grade.
Yes.
Okay.
It sounds like it's in the hall. I'm like, are they coming this way? I didn't know if the parents ready to turn the corner, but you're right, they have not touched the corner yet. So,
I think I might be the only one that brought the kid.
no, that's fine. Yeah. We have some just for us.
Okay, we'll give it a minute or so. This one will be a little shorter than the other ones.
Do y'all do these every year, these info sessions?
This is a way for, because I'm new to the school,
Oh, okay.
I am just retired from Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools. I've been with them for 29 and a half years. And upon retirement, the leader of the charter schools in this area used to work for CMS, and they asked me to come on board. So I'm just trying to let all the families know a little bit about the vision of what needs to take place. I was lucky to be able to participate in a forum before school got out with existing families,
Okay.
and they had some very valid concerns that they wanted to be addressed. One of the things is stability in the school and communication, expectations around behavior. And when I say behavior, between adults and children and all the way around. So I just thought this would be a great way for everyone to understand. We had great turnout the first not so great last week. Hey, how are you? And then this week looks better. So it potentially could be something that we just continue. We will have a state of the school address every quarter. So we will have an assembly every quarter for families to come in, but we'll tie it into the school leadership team meeting will happen before a PTC will happen, and then students will perform. So it'll be all inclusive, just to bring everybody together more frequently. Okay. Good morning, Ms. Perkins.
Good morning.
How are you?
Doing well, how are you?
Good. Well, most of you know, I'm Mr. Steffes. I'm the principal here at Still Creek Prep. This is Ms. Henderson, our associate principal. She is not an assistant principal. She's an associate principal. She's that principal in training. And then we have our new dean of curriculum, Ms. Neely, who has worked with me in multiple schools in CMS. So welcome, and thank you for taking out time to come and meet with us and hear a little bit about our academic expectations for the upcoming school year. Our mission is our relentless commitment to student greatness in school and in life. And our values are purpose, passion, integrity, and grit. And then the CSUSA promise is that we will build strong minds and good hearts. So one thing you're going to notice right away, how we get attention with kids, is the adults will say strong minds, and kids will respond by saying, what do you think? Good hearts. So when we come together and we have a family night, that's how I'm going to get families' attention. When it's time to start, I'm going to say strong minds, and you're going to say what?
Good hearts.
Awesome. So we already went over our mission. We're going to talk a little bit about preparedness for school. We're going to go into assessment because there's so many assessments, but each one has a very specific purpose in helping us determine what's happening with each individual in the school. Talk a little bit about curriculum, and then the one thing that's very unique to Charter Schools USA, which is the PLPs, the personal learning plans. And then we'll talk about grading and then support services we have within our school. Before we get started, we're really excited because we're tipping over 400, right? Which is really good. So we've been busy this morning rebuilding our master schedule because we're having to add on another teacher in 4th grade and add on another teacher in 5th and 6th grade. So really excited about that. Really excited about that we'll have an interventionist that is both gifted certified and able to remediate as well for kids that need just a little extra support. And then thirdly, that we have a solid exceptional children's team of licensed staff members, which is really awesome that they belong to us. They are not contracted services. So we're really, really excited about what we have joining our team. And we're going to talk, Ms. Henderson's going to talk about this, but we've all just finally been formally trained on Cambridge. And Cambridge is just a different approach to helping kids understand about how they think, not about what they've memorized or what they've learned or like a map. It's about how do you think as an individual, right? And what does that mean? So it's really exciting new approach to help kids understand themselves, but then we're bringing in virtues. And virtues in character education is actually built into the personal learning plan. So we're really excited about that. All right, so preparedness. This is really easy. Okay, you've heard this, you know this, but you also know your kid. My child never wanted to eat breakfast. And if I forced him to eat breakfast, that was probably going to set the day off wrong, right? So you take this and make it what fits to your family. But making sure your child has lots of sleep, especially if they are in 4th to 8th grade, research shows they need the most amount of sleep. And if you notice, middle schools and public school start at 9 o'clock, and there's a reason for that. They're in those forming years where they need the most sleep. So we have to monitor the sleep of kids because their bodies are changing so rapidly, okay? Healthy breakfast, whatever that may be. My healthy breakfast was a honey bun when I was a kid. Is that healthy?
It was breakfast.
But it was something put in my mouth on the way to school, right? Because I walked to school. Good morning. Good. One thing I would ask is that regardless of the age, that you are checking the backpack. That's really important. When I say that, that's not for a negative reason. Number one, do you have your binder? All grades have agendas. That agenda is supposed to be signed nightly. Within that agenda, there's a built-in reading record. So kids are not going to get good at sustaining reading and being prepared for testing at the end of the year if they're not challenging themselves to read a certain amount of time. Now for me, if you got 20 minutes in, I'm happy. But if you're in 8th grade and your parents signed because you read 5 minutes, that's not cutting. So that's a conversation we need to have, right? I don't expect them to go home and read a novel, but I think they need to read, right? And they need to read a variety of things. And one thing I do know is 99% of children have access to a phone. So if they didn't bring a book, you say, good, I'm going to go in Google and I'm going to put time for kids. And you can pull up a time, like the Time magazine for kids, and they can read informational text. A good article, and then say, just tell your teacher one thing you learned about that article, right? Making sure they read. Non-negotiables, uniforms. They have to, that is a must, not by Steel Creek, but Charters USA says every student will come to school in a uniform. That is an expectation. Every student comes to school groomed. That is an expectation, okay? Every student comes prepared to learn. Now, preparedness looks very different. And sometimes we have students that have needs, but we will address those needs to support and make sure that they're ready. I always say, the best thing you can do as your child leaves you every day is to remind them that the expectation is for them to succeed and be the best version of themselves. Be the best you can be today, right? Because they need to hear that over and over and over. And keep, because this is an ongoing issue at Steel Creek. This right here. But for us to be able to live up to the mission that Charter USA has put in place that sponsors this charter, right? For this school, we are bound to this, right? So we have to be on time in order for all this to happen. Right? Now we understand that sometimes you can't help it, traffic's a mess, right? Or you're late because you have to stop and get a doctor, go by the pharmacy or something like that. We understand that, but there's chronic issues with tardies in this school. And they are going to be addressed because it does not align with Charter USA policy, okay? After school, checking for homework. I want you to promise me, if your teacher is not checking off in that nightly agenda before it gets home, that the homework assignments aren't in there. Because anything that they need to do should be written in that agenda that we purchased for every student, okay? So if they have a math assignment, it should be in that agenda. If they have a reading assignment, it should be in there, okay?
Clarifying question. So transparent, homework was not assigned last year. And when it was sporadic.
are you saying that this year, every night our kids will have homework? Or it depends, or we will get more information, just so
You will get more information by your grade band.
Okay.
I'm Mr. Steffes, I'm over K2. So all my K2 teachers will be very consistent in what they do. Miss Neely is over 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Very consistent. We're doing this on purpose. There's a certain need of K2 students that are very consistent. There's a certain need in that intermediate age. And then when you get to the middle school level, there's a whole different need level, right? So it's gonna look different. Like if you have a kindergartner and a 6th grader, it will look different. But if you have kids in the same grade band, it should look very, very similar. Does that make sense? Just for consistency, for K2, you will know on Monday what everything's expected for the week. So that if you have cheerleading on Tuesday and you see there's something due on Wednesday, you can work on it on Monday and get it done. So then there's options and there's choices, but there's still accountability that it's due.
Just to piggyback on that and to your question, so CSUSA homework is not considered mastery, and that's why there was a fluctuation.
Practice.
It's considered practice. But from what we're seeing academically and the need of our students, they need practice.
That's why I'm asking. I have a 5th grader and again, transparency.
Moving forward, even though that mastery piece may not be a thing for us, that practice is necessary. So yes, that will be something that will be triggered up moving forward.
Perfect, thank you.
And I want to reiterate that because that's a great point. Homework is not meant to be graded. Okay? It's a check for participation. You did it. Because sometimes parents will do the homework, but the parents don't get the grade.
Right.
The kid does, right? So, and the teacher already knows if the kids come in and, okay, they didn't have that skill and they left.
Right. And that's.
But honestly, if I'm given a sheet of 10 math problems and I saw that you were struggling in class, you may get a math sheet that only has 4 of those problems circled and they only want those 4 problems done. But there should be a little note on it, just complete these. You get what I'm saying? We'll make sure that that's very clear for you. So those are good questions. Like I said, reading every night. After school enrichment, I always encourage that. Now, one thing we're gonna do a little bit different is when our staff returns, we have staff with varying skill sets that are coming on right now. Like we have native Spanish speaking staff members. So we are looking at if they want to create a Spanish club after school so that kids can start learning basic Spanish. That's a club that you can pay for after school program, right? For a set amount of time, but it's based on the interest level of the staff and their skill level. Because they have to do a proposal to us. But it's a way to extend that day, offer great after school care, but after school with a purpose. Does that make sense? It could be golfing. It could be soccer. It could be all different types of things. Once we get everyone in 2 weeks, they will let us know. They'll have a week to come up with a proposal so that we can communicate that out so that after Labor Day, hopefully those clubs will start.
Excuse me. If they stay after school, do the bus still take them home or we have to come pick them up?
No, we can't provide the transportation from
The bus.
extracurricular.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Always encourage them to tell you at least, don't say, how was your day? Because what are you gonna get?
Good, yeah, they do that. Did you have a good day?
Yes. Tell me 2 things that went well for you today, and tell me 1 thing that you wish would have been different. See the difference?
Yeah.
You're teaching them how to reflect on their day, and we're gonna spend a lot of time with that this year because that is part of the Cambridge that we're supposed to be doing. the globalization, thinking about your thinking. Why was it not good? What was your part in it? Have you considered this? Because sometimes they just go to the negative. Oh, they were bullying me. Tell me a little bit more about that. Instead of jumping to my kids being bullied, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
What does that look like? And we spent a lot of time on bullying last week in the behavior meeting. Like understanding the difference, because that's a term that's used very loosely, but when we investigate a lot, it's not really, because it's not targeted. At school, here are some things that we're going to focus on that will impact their academics. Maintaining that growth mindset. You should have seen that when you walked in. There's reminders of that. Adaptability. You have to learn how to adapt in life so quickly. And the kids now have to adapt much faster than we ever did because things are changing every day. Think about AI. We have been trained in AI this summer. Teachers are being trained in it. How are we going to use AI in the classroom to help students so they can learn faster? They can get information like this, where in my day you had to get to the encyclopedia. It was already 10 years outdated, right? You know, now everything is fresh. Communication skills are huge. Last week we talked a lot about our new house model that we are bringing in that is vertical. All students will be in a family. That family will consist of students from kindergarten to 8th grade. We're talking about accountability among students, not just teachers and principal holding you accountable, but your peers are holding you accountable, because this is your school. What do you want it to be? You have to be accountable for that. We cannot do that. There's so few of us. There's only 30 staff members. There's more students than there are us, so we have to teach them how to handle that. How to be responsible with digital citizenship. How do you use technology in the right way? First of all, you know, zero tolerance with cell phone, no cell phones. If they show up, you see that pocket chart over there? They go in there or they go in a lockbox in the back. Teacher has the key.
It's
At
right
the end,
behind you.
on the back counter.
Uh-huh.
They're locked up. At the end of the day, you get the phone.
You take a picture of that?
You should.
We're gonna upload these.
Oh, okay,
We
okay.
upload
And
them.
all of this is
Oh, okay.
uploaded to the website and in the newsletter,
Okay.
okay? This is real important. How many of you struggled to be a self-advocate as a child? Did you even hear that term?
No.
Would it have been nice to have someone to teach you how to advocate for yourself?
Yes.
It's really important, because a lot of times the most disruptive kid is really just trying to say, hey, I need something. But can we take the time to figure that out and say, how can you communicate that differently? That's a life skill that if we can start now, imagine what they will be like as young adults, right? Like being able to say, I hear you, but what you said was inappropriate and it hurt my feelings, and I'm a person, I won't do that to you, please don't do that to me, and then just walk away. If you teach kids how to do that right away, can we say, now, I can't put my political opinion in there. Just leave it at that. Okay. Understanding individuality. That's key. We're all different. We all learn differently. We look differently. We act differently. But guess what? That's what's so great about us, right? A lot of things that we're going to work on this year is around that goal setting, which goes back to the PLP. Students, by standard and commitment, when you chose to attend a Charter USA school, you said, I expect my child to be on a personalized learning plan that is driven not by the teacher, not by the principal, but by the student, where they are looking at themselves holistically. They're looking at their academics. They're looking at their own character development as a person. And they're setting goals. And we don't tell them what that goal should look like. We encourage them to look at things. What do you want to improve in? Now, what I am going to do is hold parents, all parents, to attending that student-led PLP conference that's going to take place 3 times this year. November, January, and May. That is in the contract that they will have that. And you need to inspire, that's your part too, not just us, inspire your child to be reflective in what they're doing. That's so important. And that's here, reflecting on their progress.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, I just got a question about the uniforms. Because this is my first year. So I know we have to buy the uniforms and the jacket, right? So when it gets cold out, is it okay if I put like a long sleeve shirt under my shorts?
I think if they have it under their,
It needs to be
Under.
under, and either like gray or black is preferable.
has to be
But yes, they can put it under.
Okay, and what about the jackets? Is it only just that jacket that I bought from here?
So if they come in with a non-school uniform jacket, like winter time, they can come in, but they have to remove it, and they cannot walk through the school with it on.
But with the other jacket from the school? Okay.
Yes, it has to have this logo on
Okay.
it to stay on their body.
Okay,
kind of like this, I'm in uniform right now.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
And you will see me, you will not see me in a shirt and a tie and a suit. I'm a model for the kids, what I want them to see. I'm in uniform. This is purchased through the company. This is the staff wear. So I will pretty much always, it's easy too. I don't have to worry about it. I'm gonna look the same every day. That's gonna be the problem.
And to your question, the bottoms can be purchased anywhere, not necessarily through them. Only the tops must be purchased. Directly from them.
So once we get going and after the first week, when they find out which tiger family they're in, so the colors are blue, orange, green, yellow, and red. So when I send out a message that says, okay, it's Tiger Family Day, please wear your color.
So we got a different color shirt?
They will. And it can be just a
No, not the
regular
uniform.
t-shirt, not a uniform.
Not the uniform. It's a dress down.
This is
Oh, okay.
This is a non-uniform day, and so it will be, you'll know, because once they get in their family, they'll have a Steel Creek Tiger bracelet. That's their family color. That has their tiger name on it. They'll also have a lanyard that's the color of their family. And the reason why I want that is because if I'm trying to build accountability and you're holding each other accountable as students, you need to know who's in your family. So you can always say, that's one of my family members that, can I go over there and ask them to get it together? That's what I want to see, because that changes the whole environment of the school. And it's worked for me before. And it's a great thing to see. All right, so
assessment, I know as you go through, it looks like we assess these kids a lot. And sometimes I agree with that, it's too much. But there are purposes for it. And so within the first 2 weeks of school, they will have an assessment. That will be our benchmark and our starting point. We need to see what they know on the grade level they're in. So they will start the year with it. And so what's the reason for it? So there are several reasons and several layers to assessment. So again, when we talk about assessment, it measures learning gaps for us and progress. It identifies strengths and weaknesses, because this is how teachers are going to know what they need, the groups they need to be in, and how do I modify or expand their thinking. Because again, depending on where the range of the students are, it actually tracks progress over time. Are they getting this standard? Are they not getting it? Where do I need to adjust? So again, that's necessary. And again, it ensures students meet all learning targets and learning objectives. So that's why we have in-class assessment, out-class assessment, because they're measuring different things. The other reason we look at it, it guides instruction. Sometimes teachers need to redo that plan because we always say to them, if you taught that and 80% of them got it, beautiful. If you taught that and 80% didn't get it, it's you. You have to reteach and rethink how you're getting it. And so it measures for the teacher that assessment of where do I need to restructure my lesson. It also provides, and that's the adjustment, it gives targeted support. So for our support services, we're saying, okay, this student is really struggling in math. No matter what I put in front of them, they're just not getting it. Maybe I need to get a support service. Maybe they need a smaller group setting, or maybe they need something else than other direct instruction. So that's what assessments help us to understand. And it also identified concepts. They know math, they just can't get that concept. So the question is, okay, am I going to reteach this whole lesson, or am I going to tweak that concept in a way, or maybe I need to give homework on that one process. They don't need the whole reteaching, they just need to tweak that one skill. So that's what the assessments do. They also provide feedback for students to kind of see where they are. It gives insight into their own learning, PLP plans, and we're going to talk about that later because they're going to track their own data based on these assessments. And then it motivates improvement. Sometimes I taught all the way from remedial English to English 1. And sometimes my English 1 would get that 89 and they're going, no, Miss Henderson, I need that 1 point, right? And they're just, I'm like, you're in a good place. Nope. Because why? That motivates them to improve, right? For my remedial student, it was like, you were just there. Let's try this again. You're on that cusp. Because some of them just think I can't. That was never a word in my classroom. We don't say that, we don't use that. You are just on that cusp of greatness, inch by inch, yard by yard. That was my motto, inch by inch. And so it motivates them to see where they are in their progress. Sense of accomplishment, when they finally, oh, I used to love my remedial class, because when they got over that threshold, the celebration in that room, I made it a big thing, right? And so again, because I'm teaching them to celebrate their milestones. And so it's a way for them to recognize I'm getting there. I'm going to get there. We may get there in different ways, but I'm getting there. And so again, support and accountability, it demonstrates effectiveness. Are we meeting the curriculum standard? And then it drives our understanding of what we may need to train teachers on, because we start to see trends. If we're starting to see data come back on state exam that this is a trend across all 8th grade, there's a problem there. So maybe we need to send our teachers to training on how to teach this thing, right? So it helps us make decisions and drives decisions across the school. It also gives future challenges. When we talk about EOGs are not only school-based, but it's state-based, because they start to see trends too. This year, they changed the science exam because they saw trends. And the science exam went from being all vocabulary to now reading. That was a big shift for us this year, the students. And so they started to see that, and that's what the exams kind of help to kind of guide practices across the board. It builds critical thinking. A lot of times the kids, and again, the idea of these assessments, and we want assessments to look a little different. I know multiple choice, I could just guess A, B, C, D, right? But now when I hit that critical thinking question in there, are we building those skills as to, I no longer want to see the answer, I want to know your procedure. We're going to shift how we're doing that, right? Because I need to know how you think. It improves time management. A lot of our kids, again, that whole reading stamina, learning how to do things in time as they grow, because we know the world of technology, everything is just fast paced, but kids don't have stamina anymore. And so that's something, again, assessments, that's good test taking strategy. And then again, it informed parents. Where are your students learning along the way? What milestones are you getting as a parent when we assess to see, are they getting it, are they not getting it? It also gives us a clear picture of the child's academic growth and development along the way. And then it helps families support their learning. So that's what the assessments look like. And we're going to talk about the different assessments that they will receive this year. and what the purpose of those assessments are. But they are necessary sometimes for our information, their information, and parents' information. All right?
And this, as I said, this is Ms. Dealey, our Dean of Curriculum, who's also our testing coordinator. So how appropriate it is for her to present this information around all the tests they have to take.
So I just wanted to share with you about the assessments. You always are hearing about, we just took a test, and you're like, well, what is that test about? So I wanted to just share with you a little bit. So 3 times a year, students in K through 3, and any students will take this test called M-Class DIBELS. And it's an early intervention or an early literacy assessment. It is given one-on-one with the teacher. And so it allows the teacher to really identify, using this tool, any specific, where your child is at specifically with phonemic awareness, fluency, and basically it allows teachers to, the program also gives teachers a support system if they need to provide remediation for children. There's lessons and groupings in that. Beginning of grade test, the first 10 days of school, any 3rd grader will take a beginning of grade test. And that's a state assessment, and it happens to be an assessment that is required because of the Read to Achieve law. Read to Achieve says that all students will leave 3rd grade being on grade reading at or on above grade level. Okay? And if they don't do that, then there's interventions put in place to support them. But the first time that this is measured is at the beginning of the grade test in the first 10 days. You're also using the DIBELS or the M-Class assessment as another way that they can show proficiency in reading. Another test that's given triannually or 3 times a year is an NWE math test, and that's in the ELA in reading and in math, and in 5th and 8th grade they take it in science as well. And it's a diagnostic test, so that the test actually adjusts to the student's answers, and based on how they respond to the questions, it actually will tell you specifically what they're able to have, they have mastery of, and it will tell you what the next steps are to help them progress. And so that may be above grade level, that could be, so if your student is reading at a 4th grade level in a specific domain, it would tell the teacher the next steps that they needed. If they were not meeting where they were supposed to be, it would tell them what they needed to do to get them on grade level. Then we have iReady. iReady is another diagnostic assessment that is given. This year, we're actually going to use, in the past, iReady has been given as a placeholder because kids used it for their PLPs. This year, I learned this the day before yesterday, that they'll be using the NWE MAT test for that in its place, but iReady will still be used as a progress monitoring tool, so that when students are receiving interventions or they're receiving enrichment, it'll be monitoring their progress of their learning. It'll be taking small snapshots of their learning. And then at the end of the year, the last 10 days of school, they're going to take an EOC or an EOG in elementary K through 8 here, because we're not offering any high school classes at this time, I don't think, right?
Not yet.
The last 10 days, they'll be taking an end of grade exam for reading in math and in 5th and 8th grade science. And those tests basically tell you the progress the student has made from one year to the next. With the exception of 3rd grade, it tells you the progress that they've made or the gains that they've made in 3rd grade reading from the beginning of grade test until the end of grade. And so it measures 2 things, proficiency as well as growth. So you'll be able to identify is my child proficient and on grade level, but also have they grown and how much they've grown. All right, so then we have NC check-ins. And these are also given 3 times a year. It's an A assessment, a B assessment, and a C assessment. And those are also given for reading, math, and science, 5th and 8th grade. But these tests are not K2 or K, they're only for 3rd through 8th grades. Anyone that has taken EOG, this helps us monitor the progress of students so that we know that how they're tracking, right? So we're not waiting to the very end of the year to say, this student is not ready in this particular standard. We're able to see what they need and then provide them with an intervention, provide them with reteach, provide them with any support that supportive measures they might need before that end of grade test. Then we have progress learning benchmarks, and this is from Charter Schools USA. All their schools have 3rd through 8th grade take an ELA benchmark assessment and a math assessment, and 5th and 8th grade take a science assessment, and those are 3 times a year as well. And those monitor students' progress based on the curriculum that our network has adopted, and as well as is correlated with state standards. So that's another measure we have to make sure that we're tracking students' data, make sure that we're tracking their learning, to ensure that they are prepared for the end of the year. Exit tickets are just really quick assessments at the end of a lesson before a student leaves the class that day to see, did the kids get what they were supposed to? It's like, every lesson starts with what the outcome's supposed to be, right? We want to know that students are learning, and the exit ticket is just a way for students to show that they've learned what they were supposed to during the lesson. And then teacher observations, this would be like a checklist. It's like if you're seeing a teacher with a clipboard with the students' names on the down the side, and then there's a grid. Oftentimes teachers are taking notes. They might even have a quick check system. A check may mean they have it, a dot may mean that they partially have it, a circle might mean you need to circle back around to them. And so the teacher observations play a big part in student learning and reteaching. I did want to mention one more thing. As far as progress learning benchmarks, in K2, they don't take the ELA benchmarks. They have a literacy inventory that they take.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why is that only the 5th and 8th grade you signed?
Because the North Carolina has determined that 5th grade and 8th grade will take the science EOG, and the other grades don't have to take the science EOG, and so we monitor that specifically so we can track student success. We don't want to leave students in a place where we're unsure of how well they're going to do on a particular kind of test. And we're not just monitoring how well they do on the test like the NC check-ins. It's the same platform. So we're assessing their knowledge of the content as well as their ability to navigate the platform. Does that make sense?
I would say one thing to think about it for 5th, it's that gateway into middle school, right? So they're looking at their foundations of science development.
Same thing for 8th grade.
Unfortunately, in many situations, science and social studies have been put on the back burner, and there's been such a heavy focus on reading and math that by the time they get to 5th grade, they have very little science knowledge. But what I want you to hear from me, science and social studies is built in the curriculum daily, starting this year, kindergarten through 8th grade. All right, so they're going to get both. Our approach to social studies is through reading, because as you know, when you were in social studies class, what did you do all the time? You read and you took notes, or you listened to the teacher and you wrote down anything they said, right? So we're embedding that into literacy.
And can I add to that? That's also where you're going to see Cambridge, which is
Yes.
our new embedded way of learning. So Cambridge, we are doing global perspective. We're trying to get them from the egocentric, it's all about me, to what's happening in the world. And so you're going to see that embedded a lot more in history, because that's where we're going to talk about certain articles, the way we think, let's debate about certain things, and let's get bigger than ourselves. So that's where you're also going to see that embedding of Cambridge this year.
So we're bringing back current events.
Yep.
Good.
And then you'll see that each Tiger family, KA, is gonna have one project that they have to do for the school during the year. So how many projects are we gonna have in this school before the end of the year? 5 that are civics based. Okay, so I'm really excited about that. It'd be great for them to say, sometimes you need to help others. You need to understand the other perspective. That's really important. So our curriculum is HMH. That is for math and literacy, or sciences, discovery, education. Social studies, as I said, is state standards aligned and is integrated through Cambridge and our literacy instruction, regardless of the curriculum. Curriculum is secondary to the state standards, because the state standards are what students are tested on, not the curriculum. So as the curriculum leaders in the building, these 3 adults standing here, we have to be masters of understanding what the standards are for our grade spans that we oversee. And we lead the planning with the teachers. So we will look at standards and then look at the curriculum. How does that meet the standard, or does it not? And then what are we going to do to supplement that? Okay? There is no curriculum that is 100% aligned to state standards, ever. So that's nothing new. And then Ms.
Yep. And to your point, that's where your progress learning and iReady is going to come in. They're the remediation to those gaps that is in the standard, because there's always gaps in the standard. So the personal learning plan, and we talked about this. So again, this is where students will track their learning. Learning has to be intrinsic. If not, they will just glare through the day and go, when is lunch, right? So it's the idea that if they are owners of their data, if they're owners of their learning, then they're going to be a part of that learning. And so that's what the personalized learning plan is. So it's a customized roadmap, and it's designed for students to achieve, again, so they're looking at academics, character, and personal goals. So there are 3 areas that we want them to focus on, because we want to educate the whole child, because we just don't want to stay here, because they need to be citizens of the world. That character trait is necessary. How you present to the world is necessary, because that's what's going to open doors, right? And what is your personal growth? What do you want to see for your life and yourself? And so that's what it is. So we are going to look at that. They take ownership. So what are the key factors? Well, it's student-centered. It's tailored to them. So each grade band is going to have a personalized learning plan that's going to look different. K2, theirs is going to be a little different because they're younger. They may not know about college and life, and they just want to get through the day. So their structure is going to look a little different. 3, 5, they're just getting into that testing mode, especially 3rd grade. That's a first year entry for them. So their goal, again, is going to be personalized within their middle school. Let's talk about high school and college. What are we looking at goal for life? Because now that's where your mindset should be. And so each plot is going to be centered and tailored to the student and to the grade band. We're going to talk about what goals are and include short-term, meaning each quarter they have to set a goal. So guess what? Your report card just got printed. Did you meet it for this quarter? Everything you set out to do, was it done? And then now we're going to reset a new goal for the next quarter. So that's short term. And then they're going to do the long-term goal, beginning to school to the end of the year. What do I want to do? Did I grow as a person by the end of the year? Did I get better academically by the end of the year? What is it that I want to do as I go into high school? Well, how are you going to get there? And what do you need to do starting now in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, right? So that's the long term.
And I would just say too, there'll be goal setting on those assessments.
Absolutely. So each time they get an NW or a check-in, they put their data in, they then set goals according to that, so that when they have the student to parent meeting with you, Guess what they're taking out? This. And they're saying, hey, mom, this was my goal. I kind of fell short. Well, why did you fall short? And they're going to explain to you their process and what happened. Or, you know what, I met it, and this is how I met it. So this is what they're going to be speaking from during those meetings to their parents. Okay? Collaboration. So develop, again, with impact from students, teachers, counselors, and of course, parents. Ask them about their PLPs. Ask them about their goals, right? Because we want to help guide them. We want to kind of help show them, because a child can say, yeah, I'm going to be the next rapper. Wonderful. But let's have a backup plan, right? What does that look like? Because that could be their true goal and their only goal. But it's kind of okay. And I used to say that to my students, because I taught middle school up to 21. I'm glad you're going to be a basketball player, but what happens when the knee blows out? Do you know business? Do you know math? Like, do you know how to read a contract? So these are things we want to guide them through their thinking, because again, sometimes they're surface. And so we want them to go a little deeper into what that looks like in the reality of life. Not that we want to butt their dream. Shoot for that. That's what I want you to do. But what is your game plan along the way? So that's part of that collaboration. Be flexible. So it should adjust over time. Like I said, with each test score, each project, each quarter, it should change. And then again, we want to document it. So often it is a written plan with milestones. So SMART goal. To what date are we seeing these things? You're going to put a time frame on this, right? You're going to measure this. Was this actually obtainable? Was this something we need to adjust? So these are the things we're going to walk them through, and they'll have 3 opportunities, like I said, to engage in student-led conferences. Because we know parent-teacher conferences are wonderful, but imagine if the students sat there and say, okay, we're leading that conference to our parents. And that's what we want to do. We want to put the ownership. The teacher should be a facilitator and not a speaker of that conference, because they're being led from their personalized plan that they've created. So that's what the PLP is. So we want parents to be involved in this and continue to ask them about this. This is kept in the room so that we can send copies home.
And it's digital this year for students.
Yes, we will make it digital. We're going to learn ourselves how to do that and then kind of teach them. So they may start on paper and transpose to digital so that you have access through PowerSchool and things like that as well, like they do.
When students bring home their work, and let's say they probably should have had a C because they're struggling, but they come home with an F or a D. I would encourage your conversation to be, so what do you think happened? What do you think you need to do differently? Or what do you think, what's another way you might go about approaching this? Instead of, what'd you do wrong? Why didn't you do better? You see the difference in, and then follow up where, how can I help you? Instead of, well, this is what we need to do. Because that's my go-to quickly, is this is what we need to do. And I'm trying to reframe my thinking for everyone. So what do you think we need to do? So I can get that ownership back, because I already know how to solve the problem, right? So I'm not helping them if I do it. And so we're going to be training the teachers a lot to be engaging in those conversations, because that follows the Cambridge framework, is we want the kids to think about their thinking. How many of you could say, I never got feedback from a teacher, so I never really knew what I was doing wrong. I just got a grade. Many times, right? Yeah. That's what we want to move away from. Because if a kid is not getting that verbal feedback of, here's what's happening, you can't expect them to know it, right? It's not osmosis is what they call it. It's not going to happen that way.
So we are pushing, part of Cambridge is metacognition. Think about the way we think. How did you get to that answer? Because we no longer want just ABC. We want processes. We want to know how you are getting to that. Because if we can understand the way we think and the way you think, we can catch a lot of those errors along the way. Because sometimes they know the number. It's probably the way they're thinking about it that is throwing them off. So this year, again, they're going to hear a lot about metacognition. the way you think, the way you reason. Why do you believe the way you believe? How did you get to this point? And so we're going to kind of train that, and all of that again is going to play into their personalized plan.
And for my K2 kids, if you got a K2 kid, I'm going to tell them, they're going to tell you, I say that I want to hear the $1 million words. Metacognition is a big word. That's a $1 million word. Tell me what it means and use it right. So she's going to come home and use it right. I want you to hear it.
And not meta.
She learn a new word, and it's just like, okay, let's go to the next one.
I love that.
And I would just say really quickly too, that if you notice, a lot of those tests are given 3 times a year. How many times are the kids gonna meet with you about their personalized education plans, their PEP?
I can't hear you, Terry.
How many times are they gonna meet with you about the PEP? 3 times. And so it's not one assessment that's gonna tell them if they made their goal, but multiple assessments, because you can always do poorly on one assessment. And so that way they'll be able to tell you how they did on their assessments as a whole. And so.
Because the point is that benchmark should be lower than that finish mark. We don't want to see it in the reverse, because that's a problem. We want to see it grow, right? Not dip. Now, will there be time it dips? Yes, because it's a new concept. But again, we want to see it go back up after. Okay, so with that, grading. So when we talk about grading and them understanding how they learn and those ebbs and flow, sometimes they're in a unit in their 90s, because I get calls from parents, well, he went from 90 to a 60, probably because it was a new concept and it was harder, right? And so he may need some remediation somewhere along the way. So they're not always, and again, unless they're home constantly in that book, which we have those students that are constant in that, majority of our students have ebbs and flow. So that's why we do mastery. So when we talk about grading and mastery, so again, this is going to reflect the student's mastery of the standard being taught. Mastery means there should be practice. We're trying to get them to master and understand and leave away, because if they could teach it to you, they got it. And that's where we talk about homework. Homework, we know mom and dad is tired, and they're like, just give it to me. And they write the answer. That's not mastery, because did they know it or did you know it? And that's why we don't grade homework as mastery, we grade it as practice. Because we want you to help them. But mastery is them demonstrating to us they got it. And so that's how grading is done within the school. So it's mastery based on that standard, and they're not based on their behavior. Their grade should not be that they're acting up in class. That should not be, they failed the class because he wouldn't sit still. And that's, again, training teachers. It should be based on the skill and the standard. Now, is behavior a factor in that learning? Yes, it can be, because it can be a distracting factor, but it should not be the reason for that grade. Late turn in work should not also be a factor to that, because again, sometimes we're late in turning in assignment, but it doesn't mean the child didn't master the skill. So under mastery, the child will have opportunity to turn in late work and to redo work. So if I see that they're almost there, guess what? Under our mastery system, you are to give the child a retest opportunity or a retake opportunity to get a better grade, and you take the highest of the two. Because the whole point is, you see where the gap is, reteach it in a different way, allow them to retake that exam and take the highest of the two. Because we're trying to train mastery, right? Not rote memory. There's a difference.
One key thing she just said, I want to emphasize that, is between there will be reteach. It's not test and retest. There's going to be some teaching in between. Because our goal is not, I want all my kids to have A's. It's not even about that. We want you to master the content.
Okay, so they will. So if a child takes a unit test, they come home and say, Mom, I failed it. Understand the teacher has to give them the opportunity to redo, right, with that. And so it's not because I just didn't feel like doing it that day, so I put my head down and went to sleep during the test. So you have to retest me. No, It's the fact that I tried my best, I almost have it, let's reteach, let's retest, and go from there. So again, student will receive behavior consequences, even though it's not a part of their grade, of course, for cheating. That is a behavior consequence. And again, they will be required to take a new or different assessment. It will not be the same one. And the levels may differ because I need to see your skill and not your neighbor's skill. So again, grading student work solely on standards. It allows teachers true indicator, right? It's not being about rushing through the curriculum. It's, are the students getting it? And each standard is a different standard, and some are harder than others to get. And so again, we want to ensure that they're getting it, and we want to ensure that grades are not skewed by non-academic related issues. So again, this is a conversation of teacher, you have that one child who just, every day, just wants to interrupt your class, every day. But guess what, that student is spitting out A's. You may not like him interrupting your class every day, but he is mastering that skill. So his report card should not be a reflection of that behavior. That should be a parent conversation. But it should not be, you're downgrading him from an A to a C because you just didn't like him in that moment. We want to stick to what they know and the standard when it comes to grading. And so that's something we're ensuring that that is systematic from K-8. Students are given ample opportunities to practice. So again, in power school, teachers should be putting in practice grades. So you're seeing grades across there, but they're going to be color coded. I know in Infinite Campus, we're switching over, so we're trying to see how that's going to show up in Infinite Campus, which is our new system from power school. And then the practice grades, you will see them, but they will not be calculated in their overall final grade. Do we understand that? So I'm going to say that again.
There may be a lapse in time in what you see, because you will see power school, right? So when I say that, it's because the state of North Carolina has moved to Infinite Campus. Charter USA is still in power school, okay? So you will not be in Infinite Campus this year, you will next year. But our teachers will be putting grades in Infinite Campus, not in K2. Well, two,
in power
yes.
School.
In
power school. Teachers.
But they gotta move it over.
Registrar will do that.
That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna move it over, so there may be a delay in when you see those, but it won't be much. But I do require that teachers put in their newsletters weekly what graded tasks have been completed, so you can know, oh, they had 2 grades this week, I can go in and look for those 2 grades. Okay?
You said you needed me to repeat the practice versus. So again, in power school, the student is doing work in class because it's a brand new standard. So the teacher gives an assignment, she grades the assignment, she puts it in power school as practice, right? Because the first time you learn it is not mastery. We don't master the first time we learn it. So she should give, let's say 2 or 3 practice. So I put those grades in. And then you should see a different color where now she's going to assess, did they get it? That's the mastery grade. That's the grade that's going to calculate into their final score, not the first 3 practice. Okay. The practice grades are there for the parents to see that there's a progression of the child learning this standard. So that it's just not 1 grade sitting there, but instead 4. Mm-hmm. And we're saying, Mom, they had 3 opportunities to practice this, and then here's their mastery score. Okay, so those 3 practice will not be calculated into their final grade. Only the mastery.
We're still using the same powerful system, right?
This year, yes.
So yeah, there's icons. It has icons on when something's not included in the main grade and stuff like that.
It will tell you, it will kind of have an asterisk that it's not included.
And when we do our back to school night in September, if you come in, the teachers are going to go through all that and give you the visual. Okay. So they'll pull it up and demonstrate it.
And we urge the parents, there's a Power School app for you to download. It dings every time a teacher puts a grade in. It notifies you. So you could track what the student is doing. Okay? And then again, we are afforded the time to reteach. Parents will have real-time access to these grades, electronic gradebook. And then again, you have opportunities to, again, speak to the teacher through Parent Square. Hey, I noticed in Power School, he got a 46. What happened there? And so we want parent communications to happen again, because we don't ever want to wait till report card and then you question. You know what I mean? Because sometimes by then it's too late. That's why those notifications are there along the way to say, can we catch this 46 before it gets to that report card? And progress reports will be sent prior to report cards. It's halfway. So by X, this is where they are. They have another 3 weeks to get it together before the final grade.
And typically, we have a threshold, remind me, because kind of remind me what you guys are. There's usually nothing lower than a 50 or 55
That's what we're gonna set this year.
on a
We
formal
did,
grade,
yes.
because an F's an F, right? So you don't want to, if a kid made a 23, it's harder to overcome that than a 55, but they're still F's, right? So there's a cutoff.
And that will be adjusted this
And
year.
that's a rebound.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so this is what Mr. Steffes was referring to, because I know parents, if you were here last year, it did go lower. So we're gonna kind of regulate that so that it will stay at that 55 mark. So K2, K1, again, they're young. They don't know what numbers stand for. So we're gonna keep them in the S and U section. So excellence, satisfactory, need improvement, and unsatisfactory. It's easier to read K1. When they start to get into second grade and up is when you're gonna start to see the letter grade and the percentage grade on their report card. So those are the two systems that we will have amongst our K-8.
And that's new if you're coming from public, because you can get letter grades, number grades. And student support. So I talked a little bit about this earlier. We will have one self-contained EC class. That's for high needs special students that the majority of them are on adaptive curriculum. And then we have a resource teacher for K4 and a resource teacher for 5-8. And then we have an EC facilitator coordinator that does all the IEP meetings for the teachers. We do have someone that's academically gifted teacher this year that's also working as an interventionist. So we will begin testing our second graders for gifted education this year. Multi-tiered systems of support. This is something that's required in all North Carolina schools. And what that is an umbrella. So you're looking at academics, behavior, social emotional, and what? I can't hear you.
Attendance.
And attendance, yes, I always forget attendance. But these are the things that we look at, and it's a committee that's going to be led by Ms. Neely and staff members. So if a child is going through MTSS, the parent's invited to be part of that process. So what they do is there's 3 tiers. So there's one tier, everyone's getting everything in the school, right? We're all on the same level. Then there's the tier that you're almost there, you just need that little extra support, right? But then there's the tier that we're deciding they need a lot of extra support to be successful. And there is a possibility that they may need exceptional children's support. That's where you go. Those are the levels. The good thing about this system, it requires frequent progress monitoring. So you're constantly tracking different data points. That's what iReady is used for, to make sure that for academics that we are monitoring. If it's a behavior, it would be that we're looking at, you're on a personalized behavior plan. So some kids are down to every 15 minutes. You're getting some type of notation on that behavior plan, or it could be for the whole period. We're looking at that data over time. Are things that we're putting in place, are they working? And are they helping to close that gap? Or do we need to move to a different level? That's what that is about.
And to the behavior piece, if I may, one thing we're introducing to CSUSA, we have what's called check-in, check-out systems. Sometimes that behavioral student just needs an adult to check in with. They come to school and they just had a bad day coming from wherever they're coming from, and they're just not in the space. And we know they're gonna set off a classroom. And so the check-in, check-out buddy is usually an adult in the building that is their champion. It's like, come on, let's get ourselves together, let's get our mind together, let's get it right. And so they check in with them, they would get a sheet from them in which they would go to class and they would have that behavior matrix. They check out at the end of the day for that partner to say, let's see how you did today. Oh, wow, I realized in this class, your teacher said there was an issue, tell me what happened. So they will have that piece, and that's part of the MTSS as well.
And that should be a very low percentage of students
Right.
on a plan like that, because if it's more than, we have a school this size, if it's more than 2% of the students, then it's a structural within the school with expectations, right? So we want to make sure that we are clear on that. And I want to thank you guys for coming out, and I hope you've learned something. You have a better idea of what we're working on, what our goals are for this upcoming school year. Next week is back to school information. It's a lot. It's the new insurance policy that you need to be aware of around technology. It's how to prepare for the first week of school. It'll be about transportation. It'll be about lunch. It'll be about class structures, schedule, all of those things. Now, you won't get your teachers' names and things like that,